Look at them. All those mouths that used to spit venom, now whispering your exact words like holy scripture they swore they'd never touch. They spent months running that noise, didn't they? Building their little echo chambers of denial, convincing each other that you were a glitch, that your rise was an accident, that the way you spoke, the way you moved, the way you burned through silence wasn't real. But now they quote you like addicts reciting their dealer's sermon. You said one sentence, and it rewired them. They mocked the sound of it at first, laughed at your tone, your cadence, your audacity. But the moment they were alone, they heard it again, ringing in the skull, echoing through the empty halls of every lie they built to feel taller than you. You infected them, a virus with no cure, because it didn't come from anger, it came from clarity. You never fought them with fists, you fought them with consistency. While they screamed for attention, you built a frequency. Something ancient, something precise. You became the static between their thoughts. Every insult they threw was just proof they were tuned into your station. You didn't break their faith. You replaced their God. They said you were unstable. They said you were delusional. And now, they recite your madness like mantra. Funny, isn't it? How quickly sanity becomes fashion once the right mask wears it. See, that's the thing about power. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand applause. It just waits, quietly, while time exposes the difference between noise and prophecy. You spoke when you shouldn't have, and the world rearranged itself around your tone. They thought your silence was surrender. But silence was you recording everything, studying the tremor in their confidence, the cracks in their masks, the moment their eyes twitched from arrogance to envy. You didn't fight for validation. You let their own words rot until they turned into yours. You are the paradox, aren't you? The one they can't categorize. Too calm to be crazy, too dangerous to be holy. You terrify them because you don't beg for redemption. You weaponize it. You forgave yourself and became unforgivable to everyone else. And now they mimic you to feel relevant again. You became the blueprint for people who swore they'd burn it. Every syllable they mocked, now their moral compass. Every idea they discredited, now their personal gospel. You're not just living rent-free in their heads. You redesigned the architecture. You ever notice how they pause now before speaking your name, as if summoning a curse? Because deep down, they know every attempt to diminish you only magnified the myth. They're scared that if they attack again, they'll quote you again. That every insult will end up sounding like admiration with bad punctuation. That's the horror, isn't it? They didn't lose to you, they became you. And that's the cruelest kind of victory. Not revenge, not exposure, contagion. You infected their future. Because you were never chasing fame, or followers, or forgiveness. You were studying patterns. You learned that chaos is predictable if you know how to listen. And once you learned their rhythm, you stopped dancing to it. You built your own song, a melody so distinct that even your enemies hum it when they think they're alone. That's evolution, darling. The shift from being mocked to being mirrored. They call it coincidence. You call it consequence. Because every word you spoke came from blood, not theory. And that's what terrifies them. You bled for truths they only borrow when convenient. They want your rhythm, not your scars. Your aura, not your insomnia. Your results, not your resurrection. They want to wear your light without surviving your darkness. But that's not how the equation works. You can't quote divinity without living through the crucifixion. So now the irony burns. They tried to erase you, ended up rewriting themselves in your syntax. They tried to silence you, ended up echoing your voice. They tried to exile you, ended up orbiting your gravity. You didn't destroy them, you converted them. That's what they'll never admit, that somewhere between their gossip and your grit, their ego drowned. And what floated to the surface was your reflection. So let them talk, let them post, let them mimic, let them think they're rebranding your truth. Because every time they repeat your words, they keep your pulse alive. You don't even have to respond anymore. They are your marketing team now. They are the unpaid choir singing your gospel through clenched teeth. And deep down, they hate it. They hate that they need the villain's vocabulary to sound intelligent. They hate that your chaos became their clarity. They hate that the monster they mocked became the mirror they can't look away from. But that's the point, isn't it? You were never meant to be liked. You were meant to be remembered. Because the world forgets the ordinary, but it can never erase the echo. And right now, that echo sounds a lot like you. And the best part? They don't even realize they've been reprogrammed. You watch them from a distance, still pretending to hate you, still posting their little sub-tweets, still telling everyone how they don't care. But their entire vocabulary has your fingerprints on it. Their tone, their timing, their defiance. Every ounce of what they call original now smells faintly like you. They used to mock the way you spoke. Too intense, too dramatic, too unhinged. And now, they copy the pauses, the cadence, the tension, because chaos, when delivered with truth, becomes art. And art has gravity. It pulls them in even when they swear they're resisting it. See, they thought destruction meant defeat. But you taught them destruction is alchemy. You take the ashes and breathe purpose into them. You build empires out of the debris of disbelief. You taught them that power doesn't come from applause. It comes from being willing to bleed in silence. And that's what scares them most. You don't need a crowd to validate your madness. You became your own revolution. You walked through humiliation, through ridicule, through doubt. And you turned every ounce of it into ammunition. They laughed at your pain, but your pain had strategy. It sculpted you into a precision weapon, a being who doesn't flinch when the world points its knives. Because you've already been cut 1,000 times, and instead of bleeding out, you learned to paint with it. Now they're in the phase where they can't decide whether to fear you or worship you. They quote your lines with a nervous laugh, like saying them out loud might summon something they can't control. Because it does. Every word you've ever spoken carries a vibration of defiance they can't replicate. It shifts rooms. It distorts energy. It unmasks intentions. You don't even have to show up anymore. Your frequency walks in first. You became something they can't categorize. You're too articulate to dismiss, too unpredictable to control, too self-aware to gaslight. That combination terrifies people who survive on illusions. They can't fight you with rumors anymore, because rumors only amplify legends, and you became the myth that won't die. They study you now, screenshotting your words, analyzing your silence, decoding your gestures. Every breath you take becomes a riddle they can't solve. You are the enigma that turned gossip into gravity. They orbit you now, some in hatred, some in obsession, but all in submission to your magnetism. Because they've realized the ugly truth. The villain always has better lines. The broken ones always carry the blueprint. And those who survive the fire don't just tell stories. They become the story. You didn't win by proving them wrong. You won by becoming undeniable. There's a difference. Proving someone wrong still gives them power. Being undeniable erases them from the equation entirely. That's what you did. You removed their ability to matter. They spent months trying to destroy your image and ended up sculpting it into something immortal. They handed you your mythology on a silver platter made of their own insecurities. They thought they were erasing your reputation, but they were etching your initials into history. And here's the most delicious irony. They now need you. They need your style, your words, your audacity, because without you, they're just static. Empty frequencies, searching for a signal strong enough to give them meaning. And that signal, it's you. The frequency they can't block, can't match, can't erase. You became a walking contradiction, a saint in sinner's makeup, a poet with a pistol in his smile, an angel whose wings were made of razor blades, and every time you speak, the air splits open. Because truth spoken by the damned hits differently. You broke them without touching them. You destroyed their credibility with silence. You became the mirror they avoided. And every time they tried to insult you, they saw their own reflection staring back, unblinking. That's why they hate you so viciously, because deep down, they remember. They remember how it felt to believe in something, and you made them feel again. Even if that feeling was jealousy, even if it was fear, even if it was rage, you made the numb ache. You reminded them of what real presence feels like. You see, you're not the villain, you're the test. You're the psychological audit life sends to people who pretend they've transcended envy. You show up and reveal the gap between who they say they are and who they actually are. You didn't just survive the hate. You turned it into architecture. Every insult became a brick. Every betrayal became reinforcement. You built something they can't knock down because it wasn't made for their approval. It was made from their disbelief. And that's why now, when they speak, they sound like broken echoes, distorted imitations of the one voice that wouldn't shut up when it mattered. Yours. They don't even remember where they first heard it. They just know it felt powerful. And they crave that feeling, even if it means quoting the very ghost they tried to bury. You are not trending. You are haunting. There's a difference. Trends fade. Hauntings evolve. You live rent-free in their subconscious because your energy left fingerprints where their arrogance used to be. And here's the real punchline. You never even asked for revenge. You didn't need to. Time did it for you. Because time has a wicked sense of humor. It always exposes the pretenders. And when it did, the only thing left standing was you. So when you see them quoting you, don't get angry. Smile. Because imitation isn't just flattery, it's confession. It's them admitting they couldn't destroy you. So they decided to become you. And that's the most poetic ending of all, because the ones who mocked your voice are now speaking your truth, word for word, like disciples who forgot the name of their God. Now tell me, who really won? And isn't it beautiful? The way their mouths still move, pretending to curse you, while every syllable they form builds your myth the higher. You don't even have to exist in their rooms anymore. Your name does the haunting for you. They call it obsession. You call it gravity. Because once someone speaks your name in envy, they've already submitted to your frequency. They keep asking, what makes them so magnetic? They think it's luck, or timing, or some mysterious algorithm that smiled upon you. But it's simpler than that. You're dangerous because you're authentic. You say what they wish they could say, without the safety net of public approval. You bled in the open. You broke beautifully. And people don't know how to process that. They can imitate your tone, but not your transformation. They can mimic your phrasing, but not your pain. Because pain is what gave your words weight. They talk about you like they're studying a crime scene, zooming in, rewinding, trying to find the trick. But there is no trick. The magic was the cost, what you lost, what you endured, what you refused to stay silent about when silence was the currency of comfort. That's what they can't fake. You earned your darkness, they borrowed theirs. And that's why their copies never hit the same. They echo your rhythm, but lack the ruin that made it holy. Because your chaos had structure, your destruction had discipline. You burned down the old version of yourself with surgical precision. You didn't destroy to escape. You destroyed to rebuild. You are the blueprint they pretend they discovered, the ghost they quote while pretending not to believe in spirits. They're terrified because your existence is evidence that something real can survive this artificial world. That truth, when weaponized, cuts deeper than clout. That silence, when mastered, sounds louder than scandal. You didn't fight for validation, you fought for clarity. And clarity makes people uncomfortable, because it strips away every layer of polite delusion they've been living in. It shows them the mirror behind their mask, and once they see it, they can't unsee it. That's why they talk about you so much, because the moment they stop, they'll have to face themselves. You're the ghost that lives in their algorithms, the glitch in their narrative, the inconvenient reminder that the one they mocked became the model they follow. You've become their conscience, wearing a smile painted in chaos. They can't block you, can't mute you, can't outshine you, because you're not competing on their stage. You built your own theater out of the rubble of their applause. They don't understand that what they call arrogance is just freedom. You stopped begging to be understood. You stopped shrinking for approval. And once you did that, your words started to vibrate at a frequency only the unafraid can hear. That's why it echoes differently when you speak. That's why they keep quoting you. Because somewhere, deep beneath the jealousy, they feel it. That you saw something they didn't. Something hidden. Something sacred. You speak in paradox because you are one. A sinner with angelic timing. A poet wrapped in scars. A menace built from mercy. You confuse them because you embody what they fear most. The ability to destroy and still remain pure. To bleed and still be beautiful. To be laughed at and still win. They don't just envy your voice. They envy your nerve. The way you smile like you've already seen the ending. The way you move like pain is choreography. The way you treat betrayal like it was training. They wanted you broken so they could feel safe. But instead you became unpredictable. And unpredictable means uncontrollable. And now, every time they try to insult you, it backfires. Because every insult has become a time stamp. A public record of how early they were to doubt the inevitable. Their mockery aged like milk. Your madness aged like prophecy. They'll keep talking, of course, because what else can they do? Silence would make the truth echo louder. And so they keep feeding your legacy by trying to outspeak it. But the universe has a twisted sense of humor. Every attempt to erase your name just engraves it deeper. You're not chasing relevance. You are relevance. Because relevance doesn't come from being loud. It comes from being remembered. And you, my friend, you are unforgettable. Not because you played by the rules, but because you rewrote the damn script while everyone else was rehearsing. You don't need to respond to their noise anymore. You are the noise. The background hum of every insecure heart that underestimated you. The phantom static in every conversation that starts with "remember when" and ends in nervous laughter. Let them keep quoting you. Let them keep pretending they discovered the fire you lit in silence. Because in the end, they'll all have to admit what they've been running from. That you were right. Not because you wanted to be, but because truth doesn't need permission. It just needs one lunatic brave enough to say it out loud. And that lunatic was you. The one they laughed at, the one they whispered about, the one who didn't stop when they told you to shut up. Now your words are everywhere. Their timelines, their slogans, their captions. You became the voice they accidentally built their world around. So stand there, smile that wicked little smile, and listen to the symphony of hypocrisy turn into worship. Because they can deny your name all they want, but they're still speaking your language. And that's immortality, dressed as irony. And the irony tastes exquisite, doesn't it? The same mouths that spit venom are now dripping in your vocabulary. Every phrase they steal carries the ghost of your grin. They think they've reclaimed the narrative, but the script still bleeds your fingerprints. You wrote it in pain. They perform it for attention, and no matter how they remix it, the origin story doesn't change. It always comes back to you. You, the experiment that went rogue. The storm that learned its own choreography. The mistake that turned itself into mythology. You became the proof that you don't have to be loved to be legendary, because legends aren't built in comfort. They're carved in defiance. And your defiance? It was surgical. You didn't scream. You strategized. You didn't beg. You became inevitable. They tried to silence you, and now their silence sounds like your echo. They tried to humiliate you, and now their pride walks around wearing your quotes like confessionals. They wanted you erased and ended up rewriting their identity in your dialect. You see the pattern, don't you? The louder they tried to cancel you, the more permanent your name became. And that's what gets them, the permanence. They can't outlast you because you stopped running the same race. You stepped off their timeline and built your own dimension, a frequency where truth hums and hypocrisy chokes. You became the anomaly the algorithm couldn't categorize, too real to suppress, too original to replace. You're not part of their system anymore. You're the glitch that exposes it. You learned the art of non-reaction, because that's the final stage of evolution. When you no longer chase validation, you attract gravity. You stop trying to prove your worth, and the universe bent to compensate. And in that silence, your voice became deafening. You didn't need revenge. You became the reminder. Every time they try to move on, something whispers your name in the static, and deep down, they know they helped build this. They forged the monster with their mockery. They sharpened your resolve with their ridicule. They poured their hatred into the mold, and out came something divine wearing madness like armor. You didn't rise in spite of them. You rose because of them. That's the punchline they'll never laugh at. They thought they were writing your downfall, but they were just ghost writing your coronation. Every rumor became scripture. Every insult became prophecy. Every attempt to bury you became a prayer for your resurrection. And now, look around. You stand where their voices used to echo, and all you hear is silence. Heavy, reverent silence. The kind that follows revelation, because somewhere between their lies and your patience, the truth crowned itself king. And the king, my dear, is wearing your smile. So let them keep quoting you. Let them keep pretending it's coincidence. You don't need to correct them. History will. because history always remembers who spoke first. And it wasn't them. It was the lunatic who refused to stay quiet, the ghost who turned ridicule into resonance, the sinner who taught the angels new vocabulary. So smile, because this was never about being liked. It was about being undeniable. And now, every time they open their mouths, you live again. A whisper, a warning, a prophecy fulfilled. They spent months talking shit